The band Lawrence has been bringing soul pop grooves straight out of New York City, with Clyde Lawrence on keys and creative direction and Jordan Cohen on the tenor sax and tour logistics hustle. Together, with guitarist and producer Jonny Koh, they form The Diner, a powerhouse songwriting and production crew. With a little help from their frequent collaborator and executive producer John Bellion, they've cooked up tracks for the Jonas Brothers, Shawn Mendes, Tori Kelly, Burna Boy, Alec Benjamin, and the list just keeps on growing. Oh, and when they're not writing hits, they're taking it all the way to Capitol Hill. Clyde and Jordan were invited to testify before the U.S. Senate in 2023 to speak on live event ticketing and the challenges of touring in a Live Nation world. Today, they'll unwrap their album Family Business, diving into the stories, sounds, and studio moments that made it all come to life. Please welcome to the stage, Clyde, Jonny, and Jordan.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hello.
Maybe I'll sit in the middle. Good to see you guys. Good morning. This is earlier than we are usually awake on a Saturday, but it is so fun to be here. Thank you to GRAMMY U for having us. We are so excited to unwrap our album Family Business, and we figured that we would just dive right in. We picked 4 songs off of our album that we thought would be fun to take a little shallow deep dive into, and we brought the sessions and everything, so we figured we would just jump right in, start talking about how we went about making those 4 very different songs. And we are going to try to, between each song, just take like 1 or 2 really quick questions rather than doing all the questions at the end, because I think it'll be fun to be able to, maybe take a question or 2 while that particular song is fresh in people's mind. Or if people don't have questions at that point, we'll just keep it rolling and we can always take some more at the end. Sound good? Amazing. So let's start with our song Hip Replacement, which I feel like maybe we should just play some of these songs. I'm trying to decide exactly how much we should do. I think let's start. So this song, if you are a Lawrence fan, I don't know how many of you are super familiar with our music or not, but we like to combine a lot of different genres, soul, funk, pop, singer-songwriter, all kinds of different things. This is a really fun, funky one. So maybe we want to just play from the top. And everything that we're going to be playing, if we want to put it up on the screen, we have the session right here. So this is actually the unmixed final version of the session. So what we're about to play right now isn't going to sound exactly like the final product because these are unmixed technically. But hopefully, you either have heard the song or you'll go home and listen to it. Let's hear a little bit of the beginning. So that song, thank you. Let's see, I wrote some handy-dandy notes about the things that we kind of want to off-the-cuff talk about with this song. I think that it's impossible to talk about this song without talking about one of our favorite musical influences, which is a band called Tower of Power. I don't know, do you want to speak maybe a little bit about like Tower of Power and what some of their signature sound is? And like?
Yeah, so I play saxophone in the band, and growing up was like such a student of all of the big horn bands, and Tower of Power, for those of you that don't know, is probably one of the biggest. They are fully like fronted by this big horn section, and I think as long as Clyde and I have known each other since we were little kids, we were always kind of sharing music, and I think I was bringing a lot of the like horn band energy to Clyde's life, and this was one of those bands. And so yeah, they're like a super funky horn section band that we always kind of talk about as being one of our references, but until this point didn't quite have like a song that was so clearly like showing how much we love them. And I think before we made this album, we knew like we wanted to make something that was so purely straight ahead, like horn funk music.
I feel like a lot of music that we've made almost all of the music that we made pulls from a lot of different influences. We're not usually the kind of band that's like, oh, let's make a song that's like exactly our reference to XYZ. It's going to be like, oh, let's take 30% of what we love about this thing, 30% of what we love about this thing, and then this other weird idea I had, blah, blah, blah. This song was, and it's kind of a funny place to start, I guess, for this reason, is probably the most we've ever been like, let's make a song of Lawrence that is a total homage to this particular era and sound, but specifically this particular band. So it's kind of an interesting thing when you're trying to pay that direct homage. It's like, how much do you literally try to rip them off with love versus how much do you try to bring a different flavor to it. And that was like a really fun line to walk on this particular song. I feel like a cool thing I pulled, can you go to that folder that I last night while we were thinking about what to do for this, I was just looking back in like the archives. So this started with us talking about, doing this kind of thing. And so Jonny just went home and made this random little thing and then sent it to us. When we were just talking about, oh man, it would be so cool to make something that feels kind of Tower of Power-y but modern, which is pretty cool.
Oh, I forgot about these guitars completely.
Yeah. So Jonny just like made this at home, which honestly is kind of like a lot of the basis of what the song ended up being. But like you didn't even have like a song in mind. You were just like making a groove that felt kind of cool, which sometimes songs of ours start from like, oh, here's a topic that we want to write about. Here's a set of chords, here's a melody. But in this case, it was truly like a vibe and a groove. And so Jonny was kind of setting the table with that.
At some point on tour, you had told me that you were thinking about this song and had sung me the bass line that you had in mind.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had that going into it, and then that's pretty much all that went into it besides the drums and a little guitar noodling.
Right. And then, so once it came time to actually lay down the song, I mean, there's so much we could talk about songwriting. I know that this is mostly like a production-focused thing. I think that the name of the game with this song for us, and with a lot of the songs, I think almost every one that we're going to talk about today, is just like we are always combining a lot of things. Particularly, we're always trying to walk the line between using like, I guess you could just call it like digital elements and live elements. So like a place where we do that a lot is in the drums, and this song is a great example of that. So like these two elements alone in the drums, if it were to just be the digital drums, it kind of doesn't have like that live room sound, especially when you get to a lot of the drum fills. That's the problem, is like then you have these sections with like all these great drum fills, and you want to be able to like really highlight those. But if you were to just bring in random live drum fills played over a otherwise completely like computerized beat, it would sound very disjointed. So then what we end up doing is we, even for the groove part, just combine. We are just constantly trying to find this thing where like it has this live energy, but it also has this underpinning of digital modern smack, I guess you could kind of call it. I don't know if either of you want to speak more to like what goes into combining those things and what the secret sauce is to getting it to sound good.
I mean, I think the most important thing when you're combining live drums and digital drums, which unfortunately is just very work intensive, is making sure that all the hits are really truly lined up. I think it's easy to get a great player who, you know, sounds really tight in the room, and then you have your like maybe super quantized drum beat, but even an amazing drummer is going to be like 5-10 milliseconds off on certain hits, and that's enough to give you phase cancellation and all these things that'll really kind of suck the life out of your drums. So unfortunately, when you're trying to kind of marry live and program drums, it's super important to go over essentially every single drum hit and make sure that they are like
And
really
to be clear,
aligned.
that's often not moving the live drummer to be as quantized as the thing. It's very often, in the case of Lawrence music, where we wanted to have that live feel, taking a great live drummer, often our drummer Sam, and being like, oh, the way he played it is awesome. Let's make sure to move some of the elements of these, you know, MIDI kicks or snares or samples to perfectly match his feel and pocket. And again, for us, that doesn't mean over the course of a one measure loop that we're then copy pasting over the song. That very often means of an entire song's worth of playing. So that's like a really important part of our process that I think, I'm sure lots of artists are doing, but I think that generally speaking, a lot of artists live in the camp of like most of their drums and most of their instruments in general are in this more sample loop driven world, and then or there's artists that live more in the like the drums and all the instruments are like played live through, and we are really like kind of trying to marry the best of both of what those worlds can bring. And that's really present in the drums here and in almost every song. It's also present in other aspects of the song. Obviously, it's impossible to talk about this song without talking about the horns, which was so much fun to make some of these horns. Jordan, I don't know if you want to talk about what the process of like recording these horns in general is like, and then we'll talk about the solo. Maybe I'll play some of these in the background while you're...
So in Lawrence, we have like a pretty distinctive horn sound and like horn approach. I think just after making so many albums, like we all kind of speak the same language of how we approach our horn lines and how we approach harmonizing them specifically. But again, for this song, since we wanted it to be so like paying homage and referential to this other sound, it was almost like we were in school again. Like Clyde and I were online, like downloading sheet music of Tower of Power horn lines just to like study their voicings.
The voicings are like so specific.
And we were calling our friends, like, how do they make, like, how do you voice one note but it sounds so insane? Yeah, so it's like, so we really studied and wrote these horn parts very differently than we do a lot of our songs. And one really fun moment before we get to the horn soli is actually the intro, like the first horn hits. Clyde, if you want to pull those up.
Oh, yeah.
Clyde, like, while this song was in its very much in its infancy, he's like, I feel like this song needs to just start with an insane drum fill, and we're just sitting there.
I literally sang it to Johnny.
Like, and we're
specifically, we were in Orlando at a hotel for a show that we had, and we were in the pool in the hotel.
Yeah.
And I was just like thinking about this song, which we hadn't really made yet. And I literally was like, I think it just needs to start with a sick drum fill. And I remember singing it to you in the pool, and you were like, cool, I'm never going to remember that. And then I voice memoed it, and I was like, it needs to go.
And we were like, sick, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so we actually, you should play, do you have the MIDI drum fill for that?
Yeah, I think I played it as MIDI first, but then I think we ended up replacing it with, this might actually, I think that this is only MIDI. We tried having the real drummers.
I think we did end up layering.
I don't think so.
Here.
Oh, it's in there.
It's
Got
all
it.
in this
It's a
folder.
mix.
So we had that drum fill, and then we were like, oh, but there should probably be horns within that, and it's like so rhythmically weird and complicated. Like, what is the obvious horn part for that? And we spent like a solid maybe like hour trying to figure this out, and it actually ended up Clyde and I just like taking turns very randomly like smacking our MIDI keyboard in the right rhythm, just like literally.
Yeah, it was like we were like the chords can't really
They
make
can't
sense.
be, like,
they need to
real-
be so crunchy. But that was literally just like
bop.
I don't know
Yeah,
if this
go
is gonna
for
be
it.
on, but. That's literally what that
Which
was.
like doesn't sound.
And now
very
I
good.
actually know what it is because I had to go back and like relearn it so that when we play it live, we do it. But like in the moment, it was just like, ugh, it just needs to be like some cool like.
And I was like I
that's
think
perfect.
that's it. Like that's
Yeah.
the one. And then we spent so much time like, because we're so analytical. We're like, well, we need to know what it is though. Like why and what, even though it kind of just doesn't.
Yeah,
matter.
and it's like A flat sharp,
Yeah,
E
yeah.
flat 11
Which
9.
there's some
whatever.
lesson in this. I don't really know what it is, but it was funny to really like let go of the control
Yeah.
at that moment. And then you want to talk about or I could talk.
Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about the horn soli? I wonder if we should maybe explain what we were trying to do with the solo section.
Yeah. So.
And then I'll play it, and then we can talk about it really quickly.
So similarly, like we had this kind of section in the song that we were calling the horn soli.
And just even before that, we wanted this song to take you to a bunch of different places. Like, we wanted this, we obviously haven't listened to the whole song. Hopefully some of you know it. Like, the whole song, we want it to be this thing where it has a really constant groove, but it does take you to all these very different places, different keys, different arrangements. And so we had this vision of this solo section where all these different instruments play solos, and it's kind of like arresting, and then it goes into this really cool horn break.
Yeah, and we didn't really know what it was going to be, and we're always trying to like kind of bridge this gap of honoring the thing that we're honoring, but also pushing it forward in a way. And we knew if we just wrote like a funk horn breakdown, it would maybe not feel like new and fresh. So we kind of had the concept of like, oh, what if we just write a bunch of different versions of this like 8-bar horn soli, and then chop it up and almost treat it like we're sampling a bunch of pre-existing horn solos, and then treat them all differently. So
Manipulate them.
yeah, like manipulate the audio so that these two beats are like all the way pan left and reverby, and this this one hit is phasery and really loud. Like treating it almost like this musical chop. So
yeah, why don't I play? I'm gonna play the section leading directly up to it, so you can kind of get a sense of like what the assignment was for us. And then after this, we'll probably take questions and move on. But usually, when you're trying to write a section, you at least know you want it to like exist as a reference to other melodies you've had or whatever it might be, or it's just a person taking a solo, so it's kind of like whatever gets played. But this was such like a blank canvas. So Jordan and I literally spent an afternoon just using MIDI horns, which for any of you that try to make things with MIDI horns, they just like sound really crappy all the time. But we did our best to like, and we just kept coming up with ideas. We were like, let's just come up with a bunch of different ideas and record them all and then chop
It's also
them up.
funny because I feel like usually when we're writing horn parts, it's like a very collaborative thing where like someone has an idea and you're like, that's great, but let's keep pushing it, let's keep refining it. And this was kind of like, let's just make a bunch of stuff, even if you don't love this one right now.
Yeah.
That's not what the intended final product is, so let's just get ideas.
And we wanted them to be very different, so we were trying to almost be like, all right, I'm going to go do something else. You make something with no idea what I just made, whatever. So I don't know. Someone yell out a number between 1 and 8. Okay, 7.
Oh,
so
this is
horn breakdown 7. We literally haven't listened to these in years. We ran out of steam again.
Crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, we recorded all of them, and then we just kind of like picked the best parts, chopped it up, because we wanted it to be like musically listenable, but actually kind of crazy at the same time. And then basically, this is something that Jonny's really amazing at, and maybe you could talk for 1 second about this after, is just like manipulating, taking everything and then putting it through all these different crazy effects so that it feels cool. But anyway, here's the final product of this horn breakdown. Yeah, do you want to talk for maybe like a couple seconds about what the process, how you approach doing things like this? Like, I don't know, making these cool, crazy things?
Yeah, it originally, this idea stemmed from the idea that at any given time when you're listening to a song, you're kind of only really paying attention to one thing. And in college, when I was making more experimental music, I had messed around with the idea that what if the only thing in the song at any given moment was the thing you're paying attention to, but it doesn't have to be like a melody that lasts the whole time. It can be like guitar for 500 milliseconds and then a drum hit, and then it's, you know, like a synth stab, and then it's moving from thing to thing. And during that time, I found that one very effective piece of it is when the textures that you're jumping between very quickly have very different kind of structures. So maybe your guitar is very small and it's only in the left ear and it's very filtered, and then the thing that comes right after it is a large, completely stereo horn hit. It makes for this very kind of like interesting rhythmic, just like attention-grabbing melody that you can play across a lot of instruments.
And most importantly, stepping back, this was a moment where we were like, let's pay homage to this Tower of Power thing we love, but do something that they would never have done, both from a technological standpoint and just a stylistic one. So yeah, I mean, we could probably talk for hours about other fun little things hidden in this song that has like 7 key changes and a million crazy things going on. This is kind of our most bells and whistles-y song, but we want to make sure to move on to the next one. Before we do we want to maybe take one question? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, honestly, I wasn't even thinking about like talking in this thing about lyrics, but that was a great question because it's hard to talk about this song without talking about that particular thing. So I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, probably the most famous Tower of Power song, certainly one of their biggest hits, is called What Is Hip? And the entire song is about questioning the idea of hipness and coolness and like what does it even mean to be hip or cool. And I love that concept, and it frankly feels very Lawrence-y. That's like exactly the kind of question we like to mull over in our music. So we were like, in addition to musically making an homage to them, it would be so fun to kind of do our almost like sequel 2024 at the time take on like that concept. So for us, we were like, this idea of hipness and, like, and especially because this style of music isn't necessarily always considered the most hip in our current time. So it's like almost meta in a way for us to make a song that is a reference to this style of music that we love, that we think is super hip, whatever that means. And even if it doesn't paint us as that hip for doing so. So this entire song, the song is called Hip Replacement. It's obviously playing with the double meaning of like hip replacements represent something that happened in your life, maybe when you're getting older, you're not cool anymore. And we're saying like, no, we don't need a hip replacement. We're happy with what we're up to, and it's cool getting older. It's cool doing things that are different than what everybody else is doing. Make the music that you want to make, be who you want to be. So it's fully us, like paying homage lyrically and subject matter wise, but also maybe in a way that's slightly different than how they would have done, using this kind of very quirky pun of like a medical hip replacement, which is maybe a little outside the language of what they were doing. Great question. I think let's move on to the next song. Let's move on to Death of Me. So we figured we would start with like two of the most maximalist songs that we have on our album, but then we're going to make sure to make some time for the minimalism as well. This song is called Death of Me. Certainly I'd say the thing that happens in this song that is different than any song that we've ever made before, I would say, or at least much more so, is that it really undergoes a really huge change between verse and chorus. It's almost like we took two completely different songs and smashed them together, which is exactly what happened. I had a verse idea, Gracie had a chorus idea for two different songs. We were just playing each other stuff that we were excited about, and we were like, crazy idea, what if these things went together even though they don't seem like they make a lot of sense, because the subject matter that we were writing about was really similar. And similar to what we were just talking about subject matter wise, like it's fun to have songs that musically represent what the lyrics are about. So that song Hip Replacement is about not worrying about the trends, not worrying about what people are saying is hip, and like the musical embodiment of the song is kind of our attempt at that. Same thing with this. This song is called Death of Me. It's about feeling burned out, being pulled in a million directions, kind of like just the desperation and like exhaustion that comes with so many things. In this case, because our album's family business, so much of it we're thinking about through the lens of our careers. So it felt really fitting, actually, and not weird at all to us to have a song that feels very all over the place and actually feels like it itself is like getting pulled in a million different directions that feel kind of burnt out. So maybe we'll do the same thing. Maybe we'll play just like the first verse chorus of the song, and then we'll talk through a little bit of it. But I mean, off the bat, do either of you want to talk about the obvious challenges and quirks that come with like having a song with such switch ups or tempos, and like the challenges that come with that, or how you approach balancing cohesion sonically with intentionally wanting to have it feel so different?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that in some ways it's not completely uncohesive sonically so much as it is rhythmically, which presents the obvious challenge of like these days we make a song that is the same tempo all the way through, and this one is vastly different moving from the verse to the chorus. I think that change in itself.
Here's your little tempo thing for everyone.
And figuring out the exact right moment to switch back. Are there some things that come in when we're switching from that slow chorus back to the, I guess, post-chorus?
Also, like this decision of like having it actually slowly speed up over the course of a measure, technically.
Yeah, no, it's like how long do you hold that last chord for? When is the right moment to start bringing in some little rhythmic elements that aren't the old tempo, that are the new one, and getting all of those massaging things to feel right. Also, a lot of these transitional sounds to try to get us to the feeling of like
Being ready for a
stopping.
big change.
Yeah, being ready to like slow down into the chorus, which is such a thing that I feel like never happens. Usually, if anything, you're speeding up a little bit into the chorus.
Yeah. I think that this song, similar to the last one, we do so much combining of like what you might call organic and more synthetic elements. So the drums are another great example of that. Like we've got a mix of a few different drum elements. I think that these are maybe all digital. But then even beyond the drums, like there's a lot of combining, even looking at the elements that are in this first chorus, like.
Just to interject, I feel like we were talking about it with the drums, but we also, in just about every instrument, like to combine a software version of it with the real version of it. Not for every song, but in this instance.
We're always open to it.
Yeah. It's like
so is one of these, is this, I see, is this a MIDI piano and this is, this is probably a digital piano and this is our actual piano that we have in the studio that's giving it all that kind of character. And then we have like an element like this that's like organ, mellotron. And then the second chorus, so we're really, and again, these things are a mix of things that feel really organic and then things that feel really synthetic or digital. And then of course there's like, this is super synthetic. So it really is like such a marriage of those different things. And just so that you guys hear what this second chorus sounds like. So it's kind of this big collage of all kinds of different sounds. I feel like we don't want to run out of time and we want to jump into probably like the biggest decision that we went back and forth on in this song, which is what to do after the second chorus. We felt like we had so much, we had done verse, chorus, and it's these very different choruses from the verses, and even the choruses are very different from each other, as you just heard. So it's like, where do we go from here? Musically, subject matter-wise, what makes sense to do? Do you want to talk a little bit about like what the evolution of that was, or I can jump into it?
Remember the story of it more.
I mean, I don't even remember the exact order, but we were just trying to decide what to do. We had this big moment where, this section ended, and then it was like, is the song just kind of over? In some ways it feels over. And from like this subject matter standpoint, it's like death of me, the song's all about burnout. Do you just want to like relax and like have it be this kind of like release at the end of the song? And what we decided was that I think Gracie was very passionate about having the song not end in this feeling of like it ends there and you feel like, oh, the moral of the story is like you died. Like this life is going to be, because the lyric is like life is going to be the death of me. And she was like, I don't want the message at the end to be like, yeah, it was. Like, she was like, even if it's not explicitly spoken, I want musically it to be like, no, you fucking pick yourself up off the ground. And like, when you're feeling really burnt out, you just rock and roll or whatever. Like, she would probably speak more eloquently about her reasons for that. But like, so she was very excited, and I think we all were too, about eventually getting to this place. So like, she was very excited about getting back to this like long outro that just feels like, okay, no, like the whole moral is like it just keeps chugging along. But we were really excited about just having this like very epic, spacey sort of space between that and there, where it's almost like, is the song going to end or is it not? And that was a really fun thing to make, because in a song that has so many tempo changes, now we're introducing a new concept, which is a section where like there really doesn't feel like there's much tempo at all. And we just wanted to feel really ethereal and fun. And we had the idea to have that it would be cool if in the theme of this song and of the album as a whole, Family Business, if we just had someone in the background saying clock in, clock out, clock in, clock out, just like in this kind of relaxing yet vaguely creepy way maybe. And we were trying to think of who would be the perfect person for it. It might have been your idea. I don't remember whose idea it ultimately was, but we got our very good friend Susie Collier, Jacob Collier's mom, we called up Susie and we were like, can you just send us a voice memo of you just very peacefully saying clock in, clock out over and over? So we'll listen to that section now and then we'll isolate Susie as well. So that's a bit about this song, Death of Me. Do we have a question or two from anybody? Yes.
1 second. I'm coming through with the mic to make it easier for you. I'm on your left.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hi, how are you? My name is Gerald. Very nice to meet you. My question is, what are your top 5 libraries, software libraries, to do like atmospheric like instruments? Like you show us like the organs. Like, do you use Contact? Which kind of Contact libraries do you use?
I'll let you guys take this one.
We use kind of everything. We definitely use some Contact. You know, we've been known to use things like Keyscape.
And I think that's another thing we're trying to combine, like even within, we've talked about combining like organic and synthetic sounds, but yeah, like to Jordan's point, even within the world of synthetic sounds, when we're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had this really cool ambient synth here, we try to like process-wise and creatively challenge ourselves to like sometimes pull up that great software sound that we know, sometimes try to create something on like, you know, the Juno that we have, and sometimes like, yeah, try to like go like into the mic and then like make that what we want it to.
I'm pretty sure this song has somewhere in it Clyde brushing his teeth.
Yeah.
I do remember
We definitely
separately
recorded it for sure.
that when we were kind of like wrapping the bow on this,
We like bounced
you
things
felt
around.
like the second pre-chorus was missing something that was like a very skittery hi-hat-y shaker.
Oh, yeah.
That you sang it and we were just like, that's perfect. And this is that sound. I'll play
So
it
just
for
me.
you.
Wow, and the track is called Clyde Mouth for anyone that. There you go.
We maybe left too much.
And that's
low end.
why it's a hit. No. Okay, yeah, let's move on to another song. We had 4 planned. We're probably only going to have time to hit 3 here. I'm trying to think. I mean, the 2 that we had left was the title track, Family Business. But I do think that it's fun to show one that's like way less involved. So I think let's show Funeral. Maybe we'll talk about this for literally like 5 minutes and then see if we can sneak a little bit about the last one and to end on a fun and not the saddest song on our album note. So yeah, this song was kind of written as a pair with Death of Me. And we actually thought at points about having Funeral be in the middle of Death of Me. Like in that break where we ended up having Susie Collier, we actually thought about putting the entirety of this song in the middle of it and then coming back into Death of Me, which we ended up not doing that idea, but we do it live. If you see us live, that's how, spoiler alert, that part of the set list works, which is something that we also love to do in general, is take ideas that we really think are cool but end up deciding aren't quite right for the album, and then just like continuing to be open-minded about including those in our live set. Even like horn parts, horn ideas that are like, that's distracting in the context of the studio recording, or big ideas like this. But so this song is kind of a pair in a way with Death of Me, and it's directly after it on the album. And compared with those other 2 songs we listened to, it is literally just basically a piano and a vocal. And we knew that from the beginning. We wanted this to be this very minimalist song. It's about attending your own funeral. And that seemed like a very intimate thing that called for not a giant fun arrangement. But sometimes those things can be the hardest things to do, because the question is like, what do we really mean when we say we want it to be so simple? Like, is it literally just a piano and a vocal, and are we recording the vocal in the same room with the piano at the same time, and that's the final song? Or do we want to have some light strings or background vocals or synths or pads or things that support it in little ways that are subtle? It's really hard to know when a song like this is done. And it's worth noting that this song, even more complicated possibly than Death of Me, doesn't have any tempo at all. So it's just a piano ballad that is just, and that can actually be really hard to do, because then if you have some element that you like and you want to drag it to another part of the song, it might not line up, whatever it might be. So the most challenging part of this was deciding how we wanted to do the vocal. Did we want to do the vocal live in the room? We kind of romanticized that idea of like, oh, Clyde will play piano, Gracie will sit next to him and sing a vocal, and that'll be the song. So we did that, and we liked that. But then Gracie was like, at the end of the day, I feel like I could do a better vocal take. Even though we really like this piano take, I kind of want to like have the freedom to comp between a few different vocal takes, even if it's mostly pulling from 2 or 3 takes, not like a million. And so then she did that, and we did ultimately and we actually did, and we won't have time to listen to them, but we were really unsure of which one we liked more, and we were concerned that we were biased because we liked the idea of using the one that was sung live with the piano. So I literally just bounced them as like version A, version B, and didn't tell anyone which one was which, so that it was like a truly honest thing. And we all ended up liking the version that was a truly comped, sung after the fact vocal, the normal studio way. But then this funny thing happened where the song just didn't sound as good and warm and intimate, and we realized that it was because we really liked the sound of the piano bleed in the vocal mic from the take when she sang it live. Does that make sense? And so it was this funny, like, unintended effect that it really, like, glued the whole thing together. But we really liked this new take, so what we ended up doing was we just put the vocal mic in the exact spot where she had sung it, and then, like, played the piano really loud, essentially reamped the piano through where her vocal mic would have been to try to in some way mimic the bleed. So like, let's play a tiny bit of this song. So I mean, just jumping to the other big decision we had was just like, do we want to add anything else in this song? We, Jordan, do you want to talk a little bit about the strings and drones exploration? And
yeah, kind of like, not quite in the 11th hour, but maybe in the 10th hour of us thinking this song was done. Obviously, like, there's just thoughts of like, is this done? Like, does it elevate? Like, does the second chorus different from the first? Should it be? Should we be adding anything? So we kind of went on this whole exploration of like, what are the simple things we can add to just elevate lightly the back half of the song?
And so it's hard to know until you try something.
Right. We don't have enough time to rehash the conversations we're having, but like, there are like hours of debates of like, does it need it? Does it not? And like Clyde said, you just don't know until you try it. So we like did a string session.
And basically, I mean, long story short, we played around with a lot of different versions of it, but we decided to completely cut the strings. We had even more strings than this. We could completely cut them, which was one of the hardest. It's so hard to do that. And then we did end up keeping the drones for just the very end, but they're so subtly in there. If anything, they almost just sound like a change in the quality of the piano because they're really just playing all, A's, which is the key that the song is in.
I think that these drones do something kind of beautiful, which is they are faded in very long. So it's almost impossible to notice them coming in because, like Clyde said, they're playing the same notes as the piano, but you really notice them leave. And it brings you this feeling of like, you don't even realize that you're kind of like getting to a more warm place over this third verse. But then when we finally do this ending tag, they disappear and it's kind of like, oh, it is now more intimate than it was.
Let's take maybe one quick question and then we'll see if we can talk about family business for 5 minutes to end on a fun note. Yes.
Wait, I'm coming through.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Siobhan. Nice to meet you guys. This is obviously very different from hip replacement, where the horn arrangements are so intricate and the voicings are obviously very thought through. But I'm curious, with the piano here, were the voicings like rehearsed and thought out, or were you kind of improvising them on the spot?
Yeah, great question. I have like a pretty particular way that I just naturally voice things. That is honestly hard for me to sometimes get away from. But I do a lot of keeping the one on the top of every, I do a lot of keeping the one on the top of every voicing. So like, and then I do a lot of also like injecting the 1 and the 5 into every voicing. So like that second chord, a lot of people might play that as like a 3 minor. I went to my own funeral which is nice too. But I'm big on like, that's like my favorite chord. Like this is a 3, 1, 2, 5, 1. That's the voicing there. And then same thing, even when I'm going to this 4, I have the E, so the 5 in there as well. So it's like I'm almost injecting a 1 and a 5 into the top of every, almost like creating my own drone. And the same thing on this B minor. I'm not playing that as, I'm adding this into that too. So that's just like how I naturally play in this style. And it's a lot of like little whole step hammer-ons. So I wouldn't say that it's something I'm consciously thinking about. I am thinking about, do I want to voice this in like the way that I always voice shit? And so in that sense, the answer was like, yes. But then like very intentionally for this moment, like, in the second part of the song, I do intentionally go to like a normal 3 minor chord. I don't go, know me, because that feels like we've been there. It's fun to go to a new place. Super subtle differences. So I guess the answer is I am thinking about it, but I also just play so much piano that I have my own kind of like voicing language that I'm always working on. So if anything, the choice is more like not how do I want to voice this, and more like do I want to voice this in like the default Clyde-ish way that I would naturally if I wasn't thinking about it, or what are the moments where I want to diverge from that? Hopefully that answers the question to some degree. But I love talking about like voicings and chord movement so much, and that's a whole other much longer conversations we could have. Sweet, let's pull up. I mean, we only have like, I think, yeah, maybe we just take questions. Maybe we pull up family business, but let's take another question or two, and then maybe we'll just play like 30 seconds of family business for fun. Why don't you pick someone?
I'm Robert. Nice to meet you guys. Big fan. You spoke about how for hip replacement and for Death of Me, how the production and the lyrics kind of go together. How hip replacement is like pulling to different directions, and that's what the lyrics are about. What is the process that you guys go through for that? Is it usually you have the lyrics first and you produce around it, or vice versa, or both?
It really depends. I would say that we very rarely have a fully written lyric with no song around it, but very often we will have like a good amount of music and a general lyrical concept for like what feels right for that song, and then we'll flesh out the lyrics, but the music is usually like done before. The music's usually done before the lyrics are done, but we often have at least a little bit of, we usually have at least a little bit of lyrical idea when we're early on in the song phase. Sometimes we don't, and I hate doing that. It's so hard if you write like a whole song of music that you love and you don't have any lyrics for it yet. Nothing feels right at that point. Like it's like such a challenge. So that's basically the process. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Remy. I'm wondering, like, you say these are like your unmixed demos and whatnot, but like obviously you have a lot of like buses set up, like you've set a lot of levels, like there's a lot going on, everything's super organized. I'm just wondering like how much mixing you do before it actually goes into mixing, because like for me, I definitely feel like like before I start mixing, like I feel like I have to have, for like the artistic vision, like some of it does have to be mixed so I can know that like it's going somewhere, but like I'm just wondering what's the next step after this, and like how much do you do before that?
Yeah, to be clear, I definitely wouldn't call these unmixed demos. We have earlier phases where we would definitely call them demos. I would call these like almost mixed, like final sessions that then we pass off to a mixer if one of you wants to talk about
what I think
we try
that,
to
like,
accomplish. And
we do a lot of mixing as we're working. I mean, these are songs that we work on for like months at a time, and it's impossible to open up a session and not tweak the mix from the last time you heard it, or like when you're adding things, we're all like producers, and Jonny just is like a bona fide amazing mixing engineer. So we're always like pushing it sonically, and then when we decide that we are done, we like do hand it off to just another person to put their like final mix on it. But I think that our music is often like 95% mixed.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
I like to I give these guys like mix notes even if we're not at the, like I like to have the thing we send to the mixer be what I think could be done personally. Like, but then they send something back, and very often I'm like, oh fuck, they actually made the vocal sound a little better. Or like there's these little things that you're like, fuck, they did improve on it a little bit.
Right. I do think it's hard when you're producing, if you are, working on a song and you want your kick drum to be massive, but you haven't made it massive, to like spend a long time imagining how that'll impact the song, or the vice versa. You say you have this like drum kit that's totally unmixed, and you actually want it to be very small, but you just have all these raw tracks. You know, like you got to do something to get the sounds in the right space. I think this is obviously, like Jordan said, 95%. It's like this is really close. I do also think that it's important to get as close as you personally feel you can get it, just because a mixing engineer can't read your mind, and they have to go off the cues that they hear when they pull up whatever you've sent them. So the closer you can get it, the more likely it is that they will hear what you wanted and continue, you know, taking your goal over the finish line.
Let's do at least maybe one more.
Yeah.
Anybody? Yes. Yeah, the question was about how we kind of transfer these to live performance and arrangement. That's a whole longer other conversation that we could totally have. The super short answer is that we are very passionate about the fact that we do not play with any backing tracks live. We play with our 8-piece band, and there's no backing tracks. It's 100% live. Obviously, as we've discussed, our music contains a lot of awesome live instrumentation. It also contains a lot of non-live instrumentation. And the answer is, like, we just do our fucking best. Like, we just, like, you know, our drummer, like, tries to play stuff that sounds as good as this stuff that is combining all of these different things. Jonny on guitar is, like, we are often, like, between me on keys and Jonny on guitar and the horn players covering those synth lines and those string lines that we don't have synth players and string players additionally. That I'm like the music director for the band for live, and that's a big part of like my role is listening to the song and thinking like, okay, what do we need embodied here, and like who's free to cover it. It's not like the horn players are just playing the horns that are live. First of all, often there's like 8 horn parts and there's only 3 of them, so they're trying to play 8 horn parts in just the 3 of them, but they're also covering string lines, synth lines, background vocal choirs. We really start fresh and think, how do we make an amazing... We believe that with the 8 talented instrumentalists that we have on stage, that we can create an awesome live rendition of any song. And so we come at it with that mindset. And some of the songs are very different live. Some of them we change the vibe up quite a bit. Some of them we don't. But our belief is just like, we can make a awesome live rendition of this song. And so there's no excuses not to do that, and we're not going to lean on like backing tracks or getting too overly consumed with recreating exactly what's here all the time. I think that's kind of all the time we have, more or less. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to GRAMMY U for having us. You can go home and listen to our song Family Business, which is the title track. And it's a really fun song that kind of embodies a lot of the things that we've talked about, combining live and digital, there's a lot of fun things that we didn't include here that we ended up including in the live arrangement and all kinds of fun stuff. The one other thing I want to give a quick shout out to is for anyone that wants to take a deeper dive into our music or to really any music that is up there. Jonny and I actually created a website called splitter.fm that originally was just a cool tool for Lawrence music where you can actually go online and listen to. It's not like one of those online automated stem splitter things. It's truly the stems of every single Lawrence song, and it's like an online DAW interface, basically. So you could go home and listen to any of these songs we talked about today and all the others and pick apart and just listen to. It's not like every single multi-track, but you can listen to the drums, the bass. We've got hundreds of artists up there, thousands of songs. Not trying to plug it too hard, but just letting you know that it exists, and it's a really fun tool if you want to take deeper dives into this kind of thing. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to GRAMMY U for having us. This has been so much fun.